You keep moving your stop loss. You know you shouldn't. You know it breaks your plan. You know it's one of the worst things you can do. But you do it anyway. And then you watch the trade go even deeper against you. And you tell yourself next time will be different. Next time you'll trust your stop. Next time you'll follow your plan. But next time comes and you do the exact same thing. Your stop loss isn't the problem. You are. Let me show you what's really happening. You plan a trade. You calculate your risk. You place your stop loss at a logical level. Maybe it's below support. Maybe it's beyond a recent swing low. Wherever it is, you had a reason for putting it there. Then you enter the trade. Price moves in your direction for a bit. Good. Then it pulls back. Normal. Then it starts moving toward your stop. And something changes inside you. That stop loss, the one you placed so logically 10 minutes ago, suddenly feels too close. Too tight. Too aggressive. You start thinking maybe you should give it more room. Maybe this is just temporary. Maybe it just needs time to work. So you move the stop. You give it more room. You tell yourself you're being flexible. You're adapting to market conditions. You're managing the trade. But that's not what you're doing. You're avoiding pain. And that avoidance is going to cost you way more than the original stop loss would have. Because here's what happens next. Either the trade comes back and you get lucky, which teaches your brain that moving stops works. Or the trade keeps falling and now you're down twice what you planned to risk. Both outcomes are bad. One just feels better in the moment. Let's talk about why you do this. Your brain has a mechanism called loss aversion. You feel the pain of losing money about twice as intensely as the pleasure of making the same amount. Losing $50 hurts more than making $50 feels good. This isn't a character flaw. This is how human brains work. This kept your ancestors alive. The cost of losing resources could mean death. The benefit of gaining resources just meant a little more comfort. So your brain evolved to be extremely sensitive to loss. To do almost anything to avoid it. And in trading, this sensitivity destroys you. Because a stop loss is a guaranteed realized loss. It's certain pain. And your brain will do anything to avoid certain pain, even if it means risking uncertain but much larger pain later. So when price approaches your stop, your brain starts generating reasons to move it. It sounds logical. It feels rational. But it's not logic. It's fear dressed up as analysis. Your brain is trying to protect you. But it's protecting you from the wrong thing. It's protecting you from a small planned loss while exposing you to a catastrophic unplanned loss. And you can't logic your way out of this. Because the fear response happens faster than your logical thinking. By the time you're consciously considering whether to move the stop, your emotional brain has already decided. Let me tell you about a trader I worked with. He had a solid strategy. Good win rate. Positive expectancy. Everything worked on paper. But he kept having these trades that blew past his stop loss and turned into massive losers. Trades that should have been 1% losses became 3, 4, sometimes 5% losses. When I asked him why he didn't just take the stop, he always had a reason. The level was arbitrary. The market just needed time. The fundamentals were still good. So I had him do something. Every time he wanted to move a stop loss, he had to write down his reason before he did it. Just one sentence. That's all. After a month, we looked at his reasons. Every single one was about avoiding the loss. Not one was about the trade setup improving. Not one was based on new information that invalidated the original stop placement. They were all variations of, I don't want to lose this money right now. That's when he realized what was happening. He wasn't managing trades. He was managing his feelings about trades. And once he saw that pattern, once he recognized that emotional signature, he could start catching it before it caught him. Here's what you need to understand. The stop loss isn't there to prevent losses. You're going to have losses. That's trading. The stop loss is there to define losses. It's there to say this is how much I'm willing to lose on this idea. If I'm wrong, this is the cost. When you place a stop, you're making a decision about risk before emotion gets involved. You're using your rational brain, your planning brain, your objective brain. When you move a stop, you're letting your emotional brain override that decision. You're letting fear change your risk management in real time. And your emotional brain is terrible at risk management. Because your emotional brain doesn't think in probabilities. It doesn't think long term. It only thinks about right now and how to make the pain stop. So every time you move a stop loss to avoid pain, you're making a decision that feels good in the moment but destroys your edge over time. This is why traders with winning strategies still lose money. The strategy works. The execution doesn't. Now let's talk about what moving your stop actually means. When you place a stop loss, you're saying if price reaches this level, my idea is wrong and I need to exit. That level is based on market structure. Based on your analysis. Based on your understanding of where the trade thesis is invalidated. When you move that stop, you're not adapting to new information. You're just giving yourself permission to be more wrong. You're saying I was willing to be wrong here, but now I'm willing to be even more wrong over there. That's not flexibility. That's not trade management. That's denial. And the market doesn't care about your denial. The market doesn't care that you don't want to lose. The market is just going to keep moving based on supply and demand. So you have a choice. You can take the planned loss now. Or you can take a larger unplanned loss later. Those are your only two options. And moving your stop is just choosing the second option while pretending you're doing something productive. Here's the deeper issue. Every time you move a stop and avoid a loss, you're training your brain that moving stops works. Even if the trade eventually loses, there's a period where moving the stop seemed to help. Where it gave you more time. Where it felt like the right decision. And your brain latches onto that. Your brain learns that moving stops provides relief. That it's a tool for managing discomfort. So the next trade, your brain is more likely to suggest moving the stop. And the trade after that. And the trade after that. Until moving stops becomes automatic. Until you can't hold a stop loss at all. Until every losing trade turns into a disaster because you can't accept small losses anymore. This is how traders develop truly destructive habits. Not all at once. One small compromise at a time. One moved stop at a time. And the scary part? You don't even realize it's happening. Because each individual instance seems justified. Each time you have a reason. Each time it makes sense. But when you zoom out and look at the pattern, you see the truth. You're not managing trades. You're running from discomfort. And that running is destroying your account. Let me show you what professional traders do differently. Professional traders place their stop and they don't look at it again. They don't watch price approach it. They don't agonize over whether it's right. They place it based on their analysis and then they trust that analysis. Because they know that second-guessing yourself in real time, under emotional pressure, leads to worse decisions, not better ones. Here's their thought process. Before the trade, they decide where they're wrong. That becomes the stop. Then they enter. If the stop gets hit, they were wrong. That's it. No drama. No negotiation. Just exit and move on. They don't view the stop as a failure. They view it as information. The market told them their idea wasn't correct. So they accept that information and look for the next opportunity. This sounds simple. It is simple. But simple isn't easy. Because simple requires you to sit with discomfort. It requires you to watch your stop get hit and feel that pain without trying to avoid it. And most traders can't do that. Most traders will do anything to avoid feeling that pain. Including things that create much worse pain later. Here's a framework that actually works. First, you need to separate stop placement from emotional state. Your stop should be based purely on market structure. Where is your idea invalidated? That's your stop. Nothing else matters. Not how much you want to lose. Not what feels comfortable. Not what gives you a good risk to reward ratio. Just where are you wrong? That's it. Second, once you place that stop, you need a rule. The rule is simple. You never move a stop further from your entry. Ever. No exceptions. No matter what. You can move it closer as the trade moves in your favor. That's called a trailing stop, and that's good trade management. But you never move it further away. Because moving it further away means increasing your risk after the trade is already going against you. And that's exactly backwards. Third, you need to pre-commit to the loss. Before you enter the trade, you need to say to yourself, I'm willing to lose this amount on this idea. This is the cost of participating. Not I hope I don't lose this. Not I'll lose this if I absolutely have to. But I'm willing to lose this. That shift in language changes everything. Because now the loss isn't something you're trying to avoid. It's something you've already accepted as the price of the trade. Fourth, and this is critical, you need to practice taking stops. You need to get used to the feeling of being wrong. Of taking a loss. Of watching your account decrease. Because the more you practice it, the less power it has over you. The less likely you are to avoid it by moving stops. Most traders only practice entries. They practice finding setups. They practice analyzing charts. They never practice the emotional experience of losing. So when it happens in real trading, they panic. They do anything to make it stop. You need to build tolerance. And the only way to build tolerance is exposure. Now let's talk about what you're really protecting when you move a stop. It's not your capital. Moving the stop puts your capital at greater risk, not less. What you're protecting is your ego. Your need to be right. Your identity as someone who makes good decisions. Because taking a stop loss means admitting you were wrong. It means your analysis wasn't perfect. It means you made a mistake. And that's uncomfortable. That challenges your self-image. That makes you feel incompetent. So your brain finds a way to avoid that feeling. It moves the stop. It gives the trade more time. It lets you hold on to the possibility that you might still be right. But here's the thing. Being wrong is not a mistake. Being wrong is trading. Even the best traders are wrong 40, 50, sometimes 60% of the time. Being wrong isn't the problem. Refusing to admit you're wrong, that's the problem. Professional traders have no ego attachment to individual trades. They know each trade is just one outcome in a distribution of outcomes. One data point in a probability game. So when they're wrong, they shrug and move on. They don't take it personally. They don't protect their ego. They just exit and find the next trade. And that emotional detachment, that ability to be wrong without it meaning anything about you, that's the real edge. Not your strategy. Not your analysis. Your ability to take a loss without making it mean something about your worth as a trader. Here's what changed for me. I used to move stops all the time. I always had a reason. The reason always made sense. And I kept losing money. Then one day I made a new rule. If I even thought about moving a stop, I had to close the trade immediately at market. No questions asked. No exceptions. At first this felt insane. I'd be watching a trade and think maybe I should widen the stop, and boom, the rule forced me to exit right then. Sometimes the trade would have worked if I'd stayed in. That was frustrating. But most of the time, the trade kept falling. And I saved myself from a much bigger loss. After a few weeks, something interesting happened. I stopped thinking about moving stops. Because my brain learned that thinking about it meant instant exit. And instant exit was worse than just letting the original stop do its job. My brain adapted. It stopped generating the urge to move stops because that urge now led to an even worse outcome. That's when my trading transformed. Not because I found a better strategy. Because I stopped sabotaging the strategy one had. Let me tell you what you're really dealing with. This isn't about stop losses. This is about your relationship with uncertainty. Trading is pure uncertainty. You can have an edge. You can have a positive expectancy. But any individual trade is uncertain. And your brain hates uncertainty. Your brain wants certainty. Your brain wants to know what's going to happen. So when a trade starts going against you, your brain tries to create certainty. It tries to control the outcome. And one way it does that is by refusing to accept the loss. If you don't take the stop, the trade isn't a loss yet. It's still possible. It's still uncertain. And uncertain feels better than certain loss. But this is an illusion. You're not avoiding the loss by moving the stop. You're just delaying the moment when you have to face reality. And reality doesn't change based on where your stop is. Reality is what the market does. And the market doesn't care about your stop. So you're not creating certainty. You're creating false hope. And false hope is expensive. Here's the practical application. Starting today, you need a new rule. Your stop loss is sacred. It doesn't move away from your entry. Ever. Not if you have a good reason. Not if the market conditions change. Not if your analysis suggests it should. You place it based on where you're wrong. And if you're wrong, you take the loss. That's it. That's the entire rule. And I know what you're thinking. But what if the stop is just barely wrong? What if it's a stop hunt? What if the market just needed a little more room? Those are all valid questions. And they're all your emotional brain trying to negotiate with reality. Here's the truth. If your stop gets hit, you were wrong. Maybe you were wrong about direction. Maybe you were wrong about timing. Maybe you were wrong about where to place the stop. But you were wrong about something. And the market is telling you that. And when the market tells you something, you listen. You don't argue. You don't negotiate. You don't ask for more time. You listen and you act. Now let's talk about the compound effect. Every time you hold a stop loss properly, you're building trust with yourself. You're proving that you can follow your plan under pressure. You're demonstrating discipline. And that trust compounds. After you hold 10 stops, the 11th is easier. After you hold 20 stops, taking stops becomes automatic. But every time you move a stop, you're eroding that trust. You're proving to yourself that you don't follow your own rules. That your plan doesn't really matter. That discipline is optional. And that erosion compounds too. After you move 10 stops, moving the 11th is automatic. After you move 20 stops, you can't hold a stop at all. You're training yourself every single trade. The question is, what are you training? Discipline or avoidance? Because you're going to get really good at whatever you practice. And most traders are practicing avoidance. They're getting really good at moving stops, widening risk, hoping for reversals. And then they wonder why they can't trade consistently. Why they keep blowing up accounts. Why they know what to do but can't do it. It's because they've trained themselves to avoid discomfort. And trading requires you to sit with discomfort constantly. Here's what most traders don't realize. The stop loss is actually doing you a favor. It's protecting you from your own optimism. From your own bias. From your own inability to be objective once you're in a position. Before you enter a trade, you can think clearly. You can analyze objectively. You can see the market for what it is. But the moment you're in a position, you lose objectivity. You start seeing what you want to see. You start interpreting every price movement as validation. You develop emotional attachment. The stop loss is your pre-trade self protecting your in-trade self. It's you at your most rational making a decision for you at your most emotional. So when you move a stop, you're essentially saying my emotional, biased, attached self knows better than my rational, objective, detached self. And that's almost never true. Your emotional self is trying to avoid pain, not make good decisions. Your rational self was trying to manage risk effectively. Trust your rational self. That's the version of you that actually knows what they're doing. Let me give you one more framework. Think of your stop loss as a promise you made to yourself. Before the trade, you said, I'm only willing to risk this much on this idea. This is my line. Now you're in the trade and it's not going your way. And you're thinking about breaking that promise. Would you break a promise to someone you respect? Someone you care about? Someone whose trust matters to you? Probably not. You'd feel terrible. You'd lose their respect. You'd damage the relationship. So why is it okay to break a promise to yourself? Why does your own respect not matter? Why is your relationship with yourself less important than your relationship with others? It's not. In trading, your relationship with yourself is the most important relationship you have. Because you're alone in this. No one else can execute for you. No one else can maintain discipline for you. It's just you and your promises to yourself. And if you can't keep those promises, you can't trade consistently. So start treating your stops like promises. Like commitments. Like your word. And maybe then you'll stop breaking them every time they become inconvenient. Here's what I want you to do right now. Look at your last 10 trades. Count how many times you moved your stop loss away from your entry. Be honest. If the answer is more than 0, you have a problem. Not a strategy problem. A discipline problem. And discipline problems don't get fixed by learning more. They get fixed by doing better. By making different choices when it's hard. By keeping your promises when you don't want to. Your stop loss isn't the problem. Your inability to trust your own analysis is the problem. Your need to avoid discomfort is the problem. Your ego's attachment to being right is the problem. Fix those things and the stop loss takes care of itself. Ignore those things and keep searching for the perfect stop placement, the perfect strategy, the perfect system. But I can tell you right now, you'll never find it. Because perfection isn't the issue. Execution is the issue. And execution requires you to do uncomfortable things consistently. Like taking losses when you don't want to. Like admitting you're wrong when you don't want to. Like trusting your plan when every fiber of your being wants to override it. That's trading. That's the real work. Not finding setups. Not analyzing charts. Doing what you said you'd do when it's the last thing you want to do. So here's my final question. Can you hold your stop? Not can you place it properly. Can you hold it when price is moving against you? When you're feeling the fear? When your brain is generating every reason to move it? If you can't, you need to stop trading and start training. Because you're not ready for real money. You're not ready for real pressure. You're not ready for real losses. But if you can sit there and watch your stop get hit without flinching, without negotiating, without compromising, then you have the foundation for everything else. Because holding your stop means you can follow your plan. And following your plan is the only way you win at this game. Your stop loss isn't the problem. Your relationship with discomfort is the problem. And until you fix that, nothing else matters. So the question isn't where to place your stop. The question is whether you can leave it there.